Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode on my YouTube series. And we're going to talk about a new topic, which I think a lot of questions have been asked recently. So I'll try and answer them in this video, which is how to get bank financing for buying a property in Malaysia. So many of you recently are looking to buy Malaysian property, and one question that may come is how can you get a bank loan, right? And get the bank loan from where? How does the process work, and so on and so forth. So let me explain this video. How does it work? So number one, the first question is yes, as a Singaporean, you can get a bank loan to buy a property in Malaysia. And when we say bank loan, we're talking about bank loan in a Malaysia bank, not Singapore bank, okay? Borrow from a Malaysia bank, okay? Other than Singaporeans, other nationality normally quite hard to get loan in Malaysia. Most important is you must have you must be Singaporean or at least Singapore-based income. So if you are a PR working in Singapore, your chance of getting a loan is also high. EP holder a little bit difficult, but normally at least a PR in Singapore, right? If you're not Singaporean, you can also get a bank loan from a Malaysian bank, right? So other nationality like China, Indonesia, all that quite difficult to get loan. So normally these people will buy cash, okay? But yeah, so for bank loan for Singaporean. So when we say Malaysia bank, right? Malaysia has a number of big banks today. So the big banks are Maybank, CIMB, Public Bank, RHB Bank, Hong Leong Bank, M Bank, Affin Bank, and Alliance Bank. These are the big local banks in Malaysia, right? So I know Singapore only have three, but Malaysia we have I think seven or eight around there, right? And we also have the overseas banks. So when we say overseas banks, we are talking about OCBC, right? So in Malaysia they're overseas, right? So OCBC, UOB, both of them are operating in Malaysia. Standard Chartered. Also available in Malaysia, and of course the HSBC. These are the big four international banks who are operating in Malaysia today. We also have some other miscellaneous banks, which are typically like Bank of China, Al Rajhi Bank. These are also present in Malaysia, but their presence are normally smaller. They don't have as big a network as the other international banks. So actually quite a lot of banks to choose from, right? If you are buying property in Malaysia and want to take a loan. So question number one is why use a Malaysia bank? Now, the main reason to use a Malaysia bank is because you don't want to be affected by TDSR in Singapore. Now, if you take a bank loan in Singapore, you do take note that your debt service ratio calculation in Singapore will be affected. And of course, you take a loan to buy a property in Malaysia, right? That will also count as your loan quota, right? When you want to buy property in Singapore. So normally you don't want to touch all this. So you only use Singapore bank for Singapore loan, Singapore property, right? You don't touch this because this will affect your TDSR. So this is the main reason, number one, why you want to use a bank from Malaysia instead, right? Number two is that if you borrow from a Malaysia bank, you have a natural currency hedge. Now, some of you who buy property overseas, you get worried about the currency fluctuation, right? So if you buy a Malaysia property and take a bank from Malaysia, take a loan from a bank in Malaysia, one thing is like if you maybe put a down payment of 30% and you borrow 70%, for example, so you 70% you borrow in ringgit so your property also in ringgit, you see, so you have a natural ringgit to ringgit hedge. There's no currency fluctuation. Your only thing that you converted to from Sing dollar was your down payment, your 30% down payment, right? That was only converted. The rest actually you didn't convert, all your money still in Singapore, right? You are borrowing from the Malaysia bank, right? So there's a ringgit to ringgit, so this is what we call a natural currency hedge. Okay, and of course the other important reason why you want to borrow from a Malaysia bank or bank in Malaysia is because you have a new line of financing, right? You're borrowing from a new set of banks altogether, new country altogether, right? Typically this is very important to property investor, right? Because again in Singapore you don't want to affect your current line of credit in Singapore, but when you buy overseas, right, you're using that country's line of credit, you see, so you don't you have a totally fresh line of credit to borrow money, which is also a good thing for property investors. Next question, how much can you borrow from the bank? Now, typically, Malaysian, if you're a Malaysian, you can borrow 90% for the first two properties and 70% thereafter. So this is the maximum limit, right? It's not always the case, but by law, right, banks are allowed to lend you 90% for the first two property and thereafter is 70%. This is for Malaysian, right? Don't care the Malaysian from where, as long as you're Malaysian IC. Now, if you are a Singaporean, typically most banks will lend you 70 to 80% maximum. Rarely you will get higher than that. So be prepared for a 70 to 80% margin of financing. So that means your down payment will be 20 to 30%. So how much are bank interest rates for mortgage in Malaysia? The floating rates right now, we are hovering anywhere from 4 to high 4s, right? So 4 to 4.9% mortgage rates for a loan for mortgage in Malaysia, right? FD rate in Malaysia now about 3 point something, so the spread is around 1% plus for the bank, right? So yeah, mortgage rates are there. Typically nobody take fixed rate in Malaysia because the fixed rates are now all at 5 over plus percent, so nobody take fixed rate in Malaysia, right? And all these are floating rates, so they are pegged to the US, our not US, our Malaysia government central rate. So there is a floating like Singapore kind of format, right? So it's a floating rate. So now expect to get about 4 to 4.9% thereabouts for mortgage. Next is how long can you borrow and what kind of repayments are you looking at? Now, if you want to see how long you can borrow, typically if like you're a retiree, right, 55 and above, if you don't have an income, right, or if your age is a bit higher, right, it's not worth to borrow from the bank because your minimum tenure you can borrow is very short. So most banks in Malaysia lend up to age 65. I repeat, 65. So if you're 40 years old, you can get a 25-year loan because 65 minus 40 is 25. So you can, if you're 40 years old, you can get a 25-year loan, right? Of course, if you have a joint name, they will use the younger person's name, right? So you and your wife, they will take for example, your wife is younger, right? They will use your wife's age to calculate. So there's a benefit of having a younger name, but both must be working. Whoever in the application typically are working people to contribute something to the loan, right? So so if you're old, right, like if you're in your 50s, right, then you can, if you're above 55, right, you only get a loan less than 10 years. To me, it's not really worth it. Normally, if you have to borrow, you should be in your 30s or 40s to take a bank loan. Then at least your loan tenure got some length, then it's okay, right? Some banks actually lend up to age 70. Okay, there are banks who lend up to age 70, but in the rule of thumb is 65 lah, although some banks are 70. Okay, so take note in terms of how long you can borrow. Yeah, as I mentioned, if you have joint name, they will use the younger person's name, right? And all these people should have income. How do you calculate the repayment? Very simple. You go online, you just find any mortgage calculator, right? There are lots of mortgage calculators online. You just key in the interest rate, like I said, let's say use 4.5%, key in the loan tenure, let's say if you're 40 years old, so you get 25 years, right? So you put in 25 years, you put the loan amount that you're borrowing, you can, voila, you can get the answer there already, how much you are repaying every month, okay? So if you really struggle to do that, you can ask your property agent who is dealing with you to help you calculate this amount, right? Based on, let's say, whatever purchase price, you can have some simulation to do for you. How will the bank approve your loan? How will I know whether my loan will be approved or not? Okay, now if you're Singaporean or you work in Singapore, one thing good is your salary when you go to Malaysia, they will actually times 3 one, or I think most bank don't times 3.5, but a lot of bank times 2.5 or times 3. So your income Singapore, you earn $5,000, you go Malaysia, you become like a 15,000 ringgit income. So your chances of getting a loan approved in Malaysia is actually quite high. I rarely ever see Singaporean loan get rejected. Most of the time, Singaporean loan should approve one. It's just a question of how much you borrow and whether you're happy with the interest rate and how long the loan tenure is. Because sometimes old people try to take loan and then they get 5-year loan and they're not worth it. Okay, but most of the time, Singaporean loan or people who work in Singapore, right, with a Singapore income, your loan always or very high chance of getting approval. And so what are the documents you provide? Standard, same as Singapore, your pay slip, right? 3 to 6 months, bank account statement to match your payslip. So if your salary is 5,000, they should see your bank statement also get 5,000. Of course, minus CPF and all those things. They want to see CPF statement. They want to see your NOA, your IRAS NOA for the past 1 or 2 years, right? They will also ask for your bureau report, your credit bureau report, which you can get from a website called CBS. I think it's cbs.com. Actually, I'll write down in this video. You go there, you pay $6 or $7 credit card, you can get a report. That report is basically to show the bank in Malaysia whether you've been paying off all your debts and your credit score in Singapore, right? So again, most Singaporean credit score should be okay. So you would usually get approved. But the income document is quite similar, right? Like how you apply for a loan in Singapore, okay? And again, don't worry. I think in most chances, right, the loan will be approved. It's just whether again you're happy with the repayment, right? How much you're paying every month. You have to go and look at the mortgage calculator to calculate out that amount, okay? Or again, ask your sales staff or sales agent to do a rough simulation for you. Typically, because you are first-time buyer in Malaysia, your debt service ratio in Malaysia is quite clean one. So you don't have any outstanding car loan or housing loan in Malaysia, right? So when a Singaporean buy property in Malaysia, right, so your debt service ratio is like 0, like very clean one. So your chance of loan approve is very high. So other common questions that people ask me is there an approval in principle, or in Singapore we call it IPA, right? For your loan, right? Can I go to a bank first and ask the bank, do I qualify for the loan? Now, typically, most Malaysian mortgage staff do not do IPA anymore, right? While the IPA service may actually be available, but a lot of the mortgage sales staff today, they don't have time to entertain all these IPA case because they are already doing the actual case. Okay, so many times they're doing the actual case really one. So they don't really, if you say you just want to do approval of principle, most of the time the banker will not really entertain you lah. So in most cases, like if you buy a property, typically there's a clause, right? If your loan is rejected, right, you can get a refund of your booking fee or things like that. Most developer do that. You can also put that in the clause if you're buying a secondary property, right? If my loan don't get approved, you will refund me the booking fee. These are all clauses you can put when you buy. So you must have a real booking form, right, or real option to purchase, right? Then only most banker will entertain you lah. If the offer letter come, right, and you don't like offer letter, or you can always tell the bank, no, I don't want this loan. Okay, so don't worry, there's no penalty or cancellation fee from the bank. Okay, bank don't have one. So the banker also will be sad lah. You apply loan, he do for you, then you don't want, then of course he's sad lor, right? But but there's no cancellation fee one. You can always reject a offer letter. In theory, you can also, like in Singapore, talk to 2 or 3 banks, see which bank give you the best offer. Okay, there's no penalty to say no, but like I said, there is no approval in principle, or typically most banker will not do approval in principle for you. You have to actually go through the purchase process, put down a booking fee, get an option to purchase a booking form, then you apply for the bank loan. Other questions you may have is that, can you be a guarantor for property? For example, you want to buy your dad's name by, and then you are the son, you want to be the guarantor for the loan, you can. I think some banks allow that today, right? If you want to do that format, right? This is possible, right? Guarantor for the loan. So same format applies, right? Then maybe your dad got no income, then you have the income, right? Then it's okay. So guarantor for the loan. I think a number of banks allow this in Malaysia. So once your loan is approved, right, typically the bank will open a current account or savings account for you, and you will also get a debit card, an ATM card, so you can, and internet banking. So you basically use internet banking or your ATM card to do all your transactions really. So you have a bank account in Malaysia, congratulations, right? This account can be used for many purposes. The internet banking works like an internet banking in Singapore, right? So you can transfer money to the Malaysia account, and normally your Malaysia account has a standing instruction or a gyro to repay the loan account. So as long as you keep your current account or savings account got money there, right, that account will then pay the loan account, right, for you. Typically this is the arrangement that most banks will do for you today. You don't need to every month transfer from Singapore direct to the loan account. You can just put one lump sum into your Malaysia account, then every 3 months or 6 months, depending how often you do it, right, you top up the account from Singapore, okay, to pay your bank loan. So I hope today's video was useful to you. Explain a lot of parts about bank financing in Malaysia. So now it's getting popular to buy property in Malaysia, and especially in Johor Bahru, I can see a lot of people. We get a lot of questions every day, right? From buyers who are looking to buy property in Malaysia. One of the key concerns that they share is getting a bank financing. So I hope this video answer most of the questions for you, right? If you have any other questions, feel free to comment below or ask me a question. If you like our content, do like, share, and subscribe. We hope to create more value videos for you guys to ease your process into buying property in Johor Bahru or Malaysia. Right? If you are also interested to buy property in Malaysia, can let me know. I'm also a property agent in Malaysia, and I can help you find listings directly or connect you to the right agent for the particular property that you are looking for. So thank you very much. Hope this was entertaining. Do like, share, subscribe, and bye bye.